Hello, Midnight TCG members. This is Midnight Fox. And with me this week, we have Genzaki in the background recording for us. We have Genzo on board.
Howdy.
And we have Eddie Phoenix.
Penguins.
And this week, we're covering Thunder-type monsters. Pretty diverse set of monsters, mainly a couple decks that solely run around Thunders run with that, but definitely a lot of good support cards, which probably a lot of our podcast tonight is going to go over is going to be the support cards that are available, and then we'll kind of go over some of our favorite Thunder-type monsters, and then we're each going to go over a deck and kind of the ideas on it. So, with that, go ahead and start out with one of my personal favorites. We're going to kind of pass these guys around. Thunder King Ryo. Everybody pretty well knows what that is. It's pretty much a very good staple side deck item. It shuts down being able to add cards from your hand except when you're drawing, and it's a way to negate a special summon. So for me, using it as a utility, I don't run Thunder King Ryo in a main deck per se. I really haven't found one other than my anti-meta that ran that and Doom Calibers alongside each other in a Chaos build. But most of the time, it's in my side deck, and that's in almost every deck. So for me, Thunder King Ryo is a staple side deck item as a utility. What about you, Eddie?
I would agree with you on that, because also, when it comes to Thunder King Ryo, it is also a good card to throw in with Chaos. Being able to toss it away for Blackluster Soldier or Chaos Sorcerer, always a good thing. Enzo?
You're up.
Well, he's decent in the main deck for several decks. But I think it's just as you guys kind of said, like I think it's a very opinionated based card, whereas when plants were relevant, like he was mandatory at 2 at least. I don't think the game really calls for it as much, although it is still a strong card and people still have strong feelings for it. But if he's not making the main deck, again, like you guys said, he's one of the best side deck cards you can have.
I think my main use for him that I just like the ability to stop my opponent from searching. The ability to go in there and negate their summon is great, and he's a good 1900 beater. But the ability to shut down their engines that bring card to their hands is what really makes Thunder King Ryo pop for me. So, and then next one I had on my list was Thunder Dragon. He's not seen a whole lot of play for quite a while, but with the release of Sishunder and Thunder Seahorse, which I'll go into later, he's starting to get a little love. Pretty much, he's a good discard for card costs. Like, if you would want to run Phoenix Wing, Wind Blast, or anything that would require a discard, having a Thunder Dragon who's a level 5 to discard from your hand. He's not a beat stick, but he's going to bring 2 more to your hand. It can be chaos food. It can be discard for card effects. It can be what have you. I'm not going to say that he's a good staple, but he's definitely worth mentioning, especially with the coming undercards, Mahunder, everything that supports the Sishunder that's just released recently. What's your thoughts on Thunder Dragon, Eddie?
My thoughts are it just takes me back to the days of Duelist Kingdom when Kaiba used it for Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon. Personally, of course, I'm a big Kaiba fan, so of course I'm going to be going woot woot Thunder Dragon woot woot. But I like being able to, if I need to, drop it in the graveyard to be able to special summon, or at least pull to my hand 2 level 5s. So, you know, and of course, like you said, with the new support that's coming out, they're going to get a little bit more play and a little bit more love. So, a lot of those cards that haven't been used in a while, a lot of those older cards are going to be now starting to get more use.
What about you, Genzo?
It's probably best to mention what he's best at doing, which is accelerating your deck, thinning the deck out, which brings to point Exodia. It's probably where, when you think of Thunder Dragon, when you've seen Thunder Dragon at a table, at a tournament, it was probably thinning the deck out, so when an Exodia player activated a draw card, he would draw better. But that's it. You know, like, there's been several fun decks throughout the time since its release where you would actually use it to summon Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon, maybe off a Fusion Gate for like a combo deck. But yeah, just as long as we mention the Exodia factor, I think we cover him pretty good.
Yeah, Exodia, and I mean, kind of going back to the Chaos thing, it's if you're like a player of like Swift Scarecrow, Battle Fader, all that stuff that kind of gives you a Chaos option, it's not horrible either. It does give you the option to have some offense in a deck, because we all know that Exodia is mainly just about drawing. It's not about beating down your opponent. So you basically have to stall them out. So Thunder Dragon's a good component if you want some kind of offense in there. It's probably better than last format when we had Chaos Sorcerer at 3, but...
Well, let's just say that he's terrible as a monster.
Exactly. 1600 attack, horrible.
Yeah.
And he's a tribute monster.
Yeah. So, good discard card, not a good playing card. And the last one I have on my list before I pass it on to you guys who have your list, Zaborg. Guys kind of past his prime, but back in the day, he was your big destruction card to get rid of monsters on the field that were a pain in your neck. Probably about the only use I really see out of Zaborg in this day and age is the fact that he is a light, so he's supported by Honest, and the fact that he could go into a rank 5 Xyz, or he could be the card you need with a level 3 to go into your synchro summons or your special summons. I'm not going to say Zaborg's totally dead, but he's really been dwarfed by cards like Ryza and Caius, who make much more use of their effect when they hit the field. So, still give some love to Zaborg, but yeah, unfortunately, he's not as popular as he was in past metas. But what about you, Eddie? What do you think of Zaborg?
I think Zaborg's a really good card. It's going to be ran most definitely in Monarch, like Frog Monarchs. Of course, if you're going to run him in a Chaos deck, he's going to be ran, you know, as Chaos Food. So, then of course the Honest drop, just to watch your opponent rage, is just so lulz worthy. But other than that, I've got nothing.
Got anything, Enzo?
Yeah. Just because Ancient Sanctuary was the pack which saw the end of traditional and the beginning of advanced format, came with the pack right after. So he was kind of like an in limbo monster in the first place, because I knew a lot of guys like myself were unsure like how this format changing thing would affect the game. Would it make me want to quit? Whatever. So like even enemy controller that come out in Ancient Sanctuary didn't get a lot of immediate support, from the players because they weren't really investing themselves that much. But there were good plays like flip Gravekeeper Spy, special summon Spy in defense, tribute the one you just flip, normal summons a Borg, advantage, attack. So, I mean, he saw a little bit. But unfortunately for all the Monarchs, whether you think they're good or not, because Zaborg is a good Monarch, so is Mobius, Thessalos, Ryza, they all just kind of take second place to Caius. But I have noticed for the last point that
Midnight Fox and the crazy house that's haunted.
Okay. So, the final thought on Zaborg was, with the release of Illusory Snatcher, I did notice in the beginning, like, say the month before he actually worked in combination with Illusory Snatcher, so they would have that rank 5 possibility because all the Monarchs are level 6 except for Zaborg. So he does have that one kind of something that separates him from the other guys.
I think the only use he really would see it right now in the meta currently, if you were looking at using him as for Xyz material, would be something like a Vylon build or not Vylon, but Constellar, or what's a Constellar build, or like Adrius or Tyrus dependent decks. Get out. Go. You guys talk for a second. I'm gonna kick the dog.
What the hell?
Go to mommy. Sorry, guys. Don't mean for you to have to hear that. I said go. Okay. I think we got some others to go over. So I'll let one of you guys bring the other guys up, and we'll kind of pitch them around and discuss them.
Sure. Electric Virus. He's another one in this kind of category we're working on right now, which is like thunder monsters that have affected, are affecting, and possibly will affect the meta. Electric Virus is one of them because you're discarding from your hand, you can take your opponent's machine or dragon-type monster until the end phase. So that's kind of relevant because whether you think Machina or Girja is a top deck, which is probably not, but they're both still good enough decks to where people are going to run them because they have time with the deck, or they feel comfortable with the deck. They know what it's going to do. So you will face machines, and you will face dragons because of Chaos Dragons. So Electric Virus is a relevant side deck choice.
And it's really funny. People thought just because Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon got limited to one, that Chaos Dragon is dead. It's far from. You've still got Light Pulsar, you've got Dark Blaze, and you've also got 3 Red Eyes Wyvern, which I think a lot of people tend to have forgot about. Which is...
Wyvern? I remember him. I still use him.
Well, it still makes Chaos Dragons with Red Eyes Darkness Metal very relevant.
Yeah.
But as far as Electric Virus, yeah, that... You mentioned Chaos Dragons, so yeah, it could be good against Chaos Dragons. But another one that's kind of anti-meta that's been growing because of its ability to take control of the field and the graveyard is Malefic Skill Drain. So the ability to side into that and take your opponent's Ancient Gear Gajilton Dragon is a good option as well. And there are some decent rank 8 Xyz monsters. Are you probably going to use Electric Virus to steal 2 of them? No, because your opponent's going to learn, and they're not going to put out 2 of them out at one time unless they're crashing into it. And, I mean, that's all having things played on the field correctly. So My thoughts on it are just the ability to, Chaos Dragons, run against it. And for me, I run into a lot of Malefic skill drains. So the ability to steal their Ancient Gear Gajilton Dragon, which is the biggest bane to me, is probably the most important thing if I look at running Electric Virus. And it's a side deck item.
Also, don't forget about that pain in the ass wind up Zen mains.
Zen mains. You can't forget about the Fox's favorite side deck item that somebody running Electric Virus would love to take my Jinzo off my field.
Jinzo!
Yeah, me and that guy. We get confused a lot. But yeah, I just want to make a quick point on a point you were making about how people kind of wrote off Chaos Dragons. I know it's far from the date of which people believed that when they first heard Red Eyes was going to 1. But I'm like, if you take out the Red Eyes, they still have, 9 to 10 just like special summonable boss monsters? I'm like, how is that deck going to be dead when the only thing you're limiting is the consistency of which you'll draw Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon and the Gustav Max OTK, which we didn't even have Gustav Max at the point. So,
The main thing
but to bring it back to the conversation, Electric Virus will take, 6, 7, 8 of those boss monsters they run, so it's a good choice.
Yeah. And not only that, the thing that I'm going to have to just rewind it back to that little conversation just real quick. The main thing they were going with was Future Fusion, being able to dump all those monsters in Grave and then 5-headed.
Yeah, that was kind of ridiculous.
You snatch your opponent's 5-headed. I mean, they're sitting there. Well,
Thanks for the win, buddy.
nope. I'm just gonna say screw you and play Magic Cylinder. Troll facing that, bro.
And I think you mentioned another Electric Snake.
Yeah, Electric Snake, while of course his relevance is not as great these days because the game has grown so much, it's matured so much to where side decks aren't as black and white as they once were, because there were days or times where you could side deck 5 cards and 3 ofs, which is still a relevant side deck strategy now, but not as much, because players want cards that, okay, I can side this in against this matchup, but I can also side it in against maybe this and this. So Electric Snake, he doesn't have that versatility, but I just thought it was worth mentioning because back in the day when we had Don Zalug, Attack in Your Hand, Delinquent Duo, Confiscation, Drop Off, once Spirit Reaper come around, people were taking cards out of your hand on a consistent basis, and it made Electric Snake at 3 in your side deck an excellent card.
Now, I want to mention, unless you know that you see this a lot at your locals, I wouldn't really say to put it in there. But if your locals is Dark World heavy, he's definitely a good side deck item for that. But as far as today's meta, that's probably the most relevant deck that's going to utilize Electric Snake the best, because when they go to activate their Dark World dealings, card destructions, to special summon their monsters, you're still getting hand advantage by being able to draw by discarding Electric Snake.
And see, that's something else I was talking about with my previous statement, where players want more bang for their buck with cards today, and granted, Konami has given them such options, to whereas Electric Snake still becomes like a point of nostalgia versus a point of relevance, because when I look at the game, and I say, okay, maybe when I go to this locals, Dark World is very relevant. I don't want to lose to it. Now, do I choose Electric Snake, who I'm very fond of because of the history of the card, or do I want Gemini Imps? You know, because you stop them from discarding with Imps. Electric Snake just gives you two cards, which is neither here or there since those two cards are unlabeled variables.
Well, if you're gonna go with maybe something along the lines of the Electric Snake being able to discard it and be able to pull two, you're gonna start milling through your deck faster. Depends on what your deck is going to be. Like if you're going with Exodia, of course you're gonna run Electric Snake.
Yeah,
No
of
doubt
course.
in my mind. For Gemini Imps, though, I mean, or hell, if you wanted to, you can run both of them, just for chaos, and just be like food, done. So really, you could run, you know, again, just you could run both, and just go to town.
I believe
But-
you have a couple, Eddie.
You were making one last point there, good sir.
Uh-oh. I think I may have lost it. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted to say. That goes back to something Ben was talking about, and the thoughts aren't exactly connected, but it made me think of like having gone through all these types, you know, types that maybe aren't even relevant by themselves, and always try to manufacture some kind of talking points for them, is that one good thing about looking at the types separately and just saying, okay, we're focused on this type this week, is you really get to discover and rediscover cards. So I think one of the most important things to the player base as a whole is what cards can help me the most in my local situation. You know, there's not YCSs every weekend. There's not regionals every weekend. So what are you playing most? You're playing your friends. You're playing at your school. You're playing at your locals. So knowing these cards that are generally more specific and the type of cards you wouldn't necessarily run if you went to a big event, it allows you to focus your side deck to really, you know, become dominant against your local area.
And that was the whole idea when I started on the different types, was to go through and either new players who had not seen some of these older cards, or possibly old players who just have forgotten about these utilities that are available in the game because, oh, well, I got to run tour guides, I got to run tour bus, I got to run this, I got to run that. It's just a staple. I have to have it. There are so much more better options depending on what you're wanting to run, that I want people to get out of the mindset that I have to run this to win. Like you said, you're going back to your local scene. What's everybody running? Maybe I could go with a certain type, or I could mix up a couple types, and they have some really good cards that have good synergy together that would make a stellar deck that nobody expects. Because every deck that comes out that becomes tier 1 is not something that people have ran like 10 different people at once. It's been 1 or 2 guys who have topped events, who took it in their mind and found loops that work. There are probably so many undiscovered loops in the game that nobody has discovered because everybody's focused on the mainstream, and that's kind of why I do the flash tournaments I have over these types that way, is to get people to focus on different types of monsters and seeing the utilities you could throw together with them. Even with awful cards, it does still allow you plays depending on how well you know the type and how well you read into the cards. What about you, Eddie? I know you had a couple.
Well, I'm gonna take my first card and combine it
Actually,
with
there was just one more for this part. It was Mistworm.
Miss
But
Worm.
Eddie, you can definitely start us off on that.
Yes.
Oh, Mistworm, where we were going with him being a level 9, 1 tuner, requires 2 or more non-tuner monsters. When this card is synchro summon, you can return up to 3 cards your opponent controls to the hand. I enjoy this little thing because, granted, it can be stopped by effect failure, but being able to just go, I bounce you, and I bounce you, to just clear the field a little bit, it can set you up for a good swing play. I wouldn't say it's a game-winning swing play unless you're getting down to the nitty-kitty, but it's one of those things where you can start setting up for that game play because it gets rid of Zen mains. It may cause your opponent to early burn their Elvozar. I think it's Lagia is one that allows you to discard 2 and then stop a special summoning.
Yeah.
Okay, it would allow for that. It's also got at least somewhat decent stats, being 2,500 and then 1,500. I'm going by attack main. And it's pretty easy to get out there. Just, 1 tuner and then 2 or more non-tuner monsters. How many non-tuner monsters, are you really going to have on the field?
Well, I think he's a good level 9 to not forget about. For me, he's not so much a main played card as he was back when we had Brionac and Trishula. Because, those 3 cards comboed together were absolutely fantastic. The ability to bounce, 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 and have 3 different options with Trishula, Brionac, and we know Trish has a little different effect, but along the same lines, when you add Trishula, Brionac, and Mistworm, they were a deadly combo. The stats are decent, but what I like about Mistworm is not so much, he's not going to be a beat stick for a level 9. I wouldn't want him out there for that. But for me, it's the ability to use your lower level monsters who are just sitting on the field, doing nothing. That's where I see its usability coming from, is to be able to make a play out of monsters that are doing nothing if you've been able to keep control of your opponent's side of the field. Or even if you're, say, a couple Spirit Reapers and you draw into something like a Dark Resonator. Bing, bing, bing. If all those Spirit Reapers have been doing is stalling the game for you, those 3 cards right there. You have a Mistworm out, and you can bounce cards to your opponent's hand. So you make use of those rather than just having them as a wall. That's what I like about Mistworm. On the flip side, the 2 or more, that's kind of where I shied away from it because I went to running higher, but that's just the way the game is sped up with Xyz monsters, and most of what you're running is going to be 3s and 4s or above. So I think that's played a key point in Mistworm losing its playability in the game. What are your thoughts, Ginzo?
Well, yeah, he's no Trishula. So when we first got him, it was like, wow, what a neat toy. And he saw a lot of play. And then, just like Konami does, they give you something good and then give you something better. But he's still a good card, and I think it's evident because I want to say most of the Mermail lists that I've seen have ran Mistworm, because you think about the easiest ways to make him, it would be 2, 3, 4. The levels of your monsters being 2, 3, and 4.
Mermails easily abuse it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the first deck to really do that, to show us that 2, 3, 4 were Infernities, you would have Arcfiend, Necromancer, and then what's it? Infernity Beetle? Is that the level 2?
Yeah.
Eternity Beetle,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. But then you had other stuff like in the junk decks where you would go Junk Synchron, that's your 3, he would special summon a 2, and then you could have Dark Grepher, Armageddon Knight, blah, 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 you know.
I'm going on
Go
the
ahead.
line of Black Wings also because you would be able to drop your Blizzard, pull, if you had him in the graveyard, you could pull your Kalut to your side of the field, and if you've got it in your hand, you can special summon your Bora.
Yeah.
And then drop.
He was a huge play when I was running Black Wings, so I'll give you that, Eddie. When I ran
Yeah.
Black Wings, he was a staple in that deck because of the different levels and the playability of Black Wings. They were 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Other than, like Sirocco and Elfin, but your original guys who really made a difference were 2, 3, 4.
Yep.
Continue, Genzo.
But you're right. His relevance is up for question. It's up for debate. He's still a good monster if you could make him. But if you think about a deck that I'm going to talk about later in the cast, Watts, all the monsters are level 4. So in some of my deck builds, I've ran Mistworm because I'm also running Effect Veiler. But that's one of those catch-22s to me because you're not always going to need Effect Veiler.
You're not always going to have it on the field. Most of the time, you're going to discard it.
Yeah, but like I was saying, you're not always going to use an Effect Veiler. So, especially in a Watt deck where you're running 12 to 18 traps, Effect Veilers do indeed sit in your hand waiting for a big position play that sometimes never comes. But even then, it just feels unnatural to be like, okay, I've got some level 4s on the field, got an Effect Veiler in my hand, what do I want to do now? Summon Effect Veiler. So it's still not something you want to do. And I think, just like you mentioned, the 2 or more non-tuners,
Yep.
just crushes it.
That was the whole kill and the playability of it, unless you're running something that makes effective use of 2, 3, 4 in your deck. But most of today is 3 and 4.
Now, answer me this just right quickly. I'm sure there's a level 5 tuner, yes?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's Fall Path.
Now, if you're gonna run something along those lines, why not just have that on your field, if you're able to save it or whatever, and then when your opponent's turn goes to end, pop up a Scapegoat and just done. Because you can use tokens too.
Yeah.
I'm going to say most of the time, though, if you're running into your 5s, of course we're going to have our specialized rank 5 Xyz monsters, but most of your people are going to want to use their level 5 monsters to either go into Tyrus or Adrius.
Well, yeah.
That's the evolution of the game. And, the one thing I do love about Konami is they never completely forget about every part of the deck. So, we still get fusions. They're just few and far between. We still get synchros. They're few and far between. And they're really pushing us towards Xyz monsters, and newer players run a lot into that. So, if you're running against newer players, I think a good element of surprise is being very familiar with your fusion and your synchros, as well as your Xyz monsters, because that can be the play that wins you the game, depending on if your opponent knows about that part of the deck or not.
Yep.
Also, just because I feel like we're kind of raining on Mistworm's parade, that's funny. Yeah. Oh, man. Anyway, I think one of the really good selling points for this guy to any person interested in him, because they're like, hey, my deck makes level 9 fairly easily, and I have a tuner, so why not, is the return versus destroy. So that's always key.
Stardust, Zen mains, everything that's hurting you.
Mm-hmm.
that you can't destroy. So instead of using up your D prison, yeah, exactly where you're going. Instead of wasting your D prison, that is a good selling point to Mistworm. It's a return. It's kind of looking at a guy like Neospatian Grand Mole, who's seen a lot of play with the Zenmain's reprint as a side item because it returns.
Woo.
Woo! So our next point, now that we kind of went over some good utility cards, we each had some good cards to go over. So I guess the Fox will start it out. Should I save the Racky Babe for last, or should I go with her first?
Save her for last. Always save her for last.
Okay, first of all, I want to start with what was released in Return of the Duelist. And start with, you were right, it was released already. Mahunder, the Under Monsters. It's 1400 attack, 700 defense, level 4 light, Thunder Monster. Once per turn, you can normal summon a level 4 light Thunder type monster from your hand except Mahunder as an additional normal summon. So it gives you the ability to get an extra summon, and it plays it along the lines of the two cards that's been released in Abyss Rising, which was Sishunder, and it's only a 900 attack, 400 defense, but when it's normal summon, you could target one level 4 light thunder type monster with 1600 or less attack in your graveyard except Sishunder, banish that target, and during the end phase of the turn, add that card to your hand. And this is kind of a triple trio that goes together because Thunder Seahorse also hit in Abyss Rising. And these three cards make up the majority of the newest Thunder utility deck. Thunder Seahorse, you discard it, you add two level 4 light Thunder type monsters of the same name with 1600 or less attack from your deck to your hand. You can only use it once per turn, and you can't special summon during that turn, but he's 1600 attack, 1200 defense, but they're all level 4s. So this whole engine works together to be able to use your grave, your deck, and your hand to be able to gain field control and go into easy XZ summons. So I don't want to go too much into the deck because I'm still toying with it, but for me, those are definitely, I'm just going to tie them all three together as my three guys that really interest me before we go into the Busty Babe after I let the other guys talk. But I want to get your guys' thoughts on that little trio of monsters: Sishunder, Mahunder, and Thunder Seahorse. So what do you think of that trio, Eddie?
I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Ginzo first, actually. That way I can wrap my mind around this. A little bit better, because my brain's just going, what?
Yeah,
That's
well, there's three of the Under monsters. There's the Mahunder, the Pahunder, and the Sishunder. But I'm kind of trepid because I've not spent time like looking at their cards because they are relatively new. And surprisingly, since my favorite type is Thunder, I can't explain why. I don't know why I haven't spent the time to kind of really invest the time to figure it out a little better. But I think it's because just when I read Mahunder, that marauding captain effect, like, there's very few things good that come out of that, you know, like, and so that's why I feel like I need more time to kind of like investigate to see if the deck, once it's in its complete version, if it pays you back for that kind of over-investment. You know, like,
I'm going to go on that where you were talking about marauding captain. The one selling point to these guys is that other than Thunder Seahorse in this trio, they're under 1500, so they circumvent Bottomless Trap Hole. All of them but Thunder Seahorse are under 1500, and Thunder Seahorse is your guy that searches.
yeah, you're not going to want to summon him anyway.
Right. and they're easy for going into your guys that require 3 level 4s like Bylon de Sigma, One-Eyed Skill Gainer, and especially very popular card in the game, Shockmaster. Which, why he's not a Thunder is well beyond me. But that's the main gift of these guys is your rank 4s, your lights, your Constellars, your Shockmasters, things that are going to limit what your opponent's field can do. So definitely, if you haven't taken a really good look at them and gotten a good feel of them, I'd take a look at them and see how the combination works, because it's absolutely amazing. And believe it or not, these 3 cards make Thunder Dragon playable in a deck right now. But I'll let you look at that and see it for yourself.
Go ahead.
No, you got it. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, because I may start going on a tangent once my brain starts going.
All right. Well, what I was mentioning about needing to be convinced is like, I've actually watched, for instance, the Constellar decks play, and I'm not impressed by that at all. Like, there's some people really getting excited about that stuff, but I'm like, no. Again, it's just one of those decks that I think this under deck type may fall under, which is this. I can't believe I just said that. They seem to fall under this. God, there I go again. They seem to be of the nature to where it encourages the player to minus themselves and not see it as a bad thing. There is like some good points about it, because I really think that Photo Knight Palladius, or whatever his name is, this guy we're getting ready to get.
Apple Operative?
No. This is
the newest guy, Palladius. Okay.
Palladius, yeah. I think, hey, that's an excellent card to make, especially since it could level out the neg 1 from when you summon a Mahunder, summon another Thunder. You overlay, make him. If they destroy it by battle or a card effect, you draw a card. You have recycling batteries that I think gets all 3 of them. The unders, yeah, he won't get Thunder Seahorse, but still, I mean, so there's just seems to be a little bit that can take away some of the negative, but again, like, I really need to spend time with it and say,
well, with it being fairly new, I would definitely say take the time and just look at. I bunched them together for that reason. It didn't go into each one specifically in detail. Just take a look at that engine, and you put it together with Thunder Dragon, and it's an effective draw engine, and it does give you easy overlays. The one thing that I will say that I disagree with you on the Constellars, I am a little impressed with them by the fact that you can use used up Xyz monsters to summon the next guys out. So
yeah,
instead of having
there's that, but still, like, if you just overlay in for one, like, well, I don't know. I guess most Xyz monsters, if you looked at it, are probably only used one time, but I don't know. I was just very unimpressed. But again, back to the unders, because we're talking about, like, I can look at Marauding Captain and say, okay, he's a level 3. I normal summon him, I can special summon another level 3 from my hand and make some really awesome rank 3 Xyz monsters, which I think is your selling point here. But I don't think wind up Zenmaines as a result of normal summoning Marauding Captain and then neg 1ing is a good option, because like if they were just reworded to where they would recruit from your deck or graveyard instead of your hand, I'd be sold.
There is more support coming. I can't remember. I think it's either in the next one or Lord of the it's either in Cosmo Blazer or Lord of Tachyon Galaxy, but it's not the Hunders. it's the, I want to say OO parts or something like that, but they play with the Mahunder, Sishunder, and Thunder Seahorse, but they're not here yet, so
Okay.
you know how Konami likes to change some of the things we get, so.
Yeah. Well, I'll let time figure it out for me.
With that, I'll
My
mic
brain.
the guys before I go on to Thunder Nyan Nyan. After we go through them, I'll let Eddie go ahead and go on to his guys.
No, hang on. Before that, I need to go back to the unders. My brain just went with combos.
Okay.
Okay, if these little cards here are able to work as effective as I think they are, I can OTK with them. Because of being able to play Pahunder. Being able to then normal summon Mahunder. Being able to then also normal summon another Pahunder. If they work the way I think they do. Because it's once per turn. You're using another one's effect to stack on top of it.
Yes, you can do that. Each one is its own individual card. So the next one is a normal summon. It's not a special summon. So they can stack if you stack them in the right direction. But like it says, except Mahunder. So yeah, you're going to have to go to Pahunder. But I believe Pahunder is, he's a little farther, a few sets out. Want to make sure. No, maybe I'm wrong.
I think, okay, if this works, because, okay, we've already gotten this summon part.
I can't believe I missed Pahunder. Yes, he was released in Return of the Duelist as well.
Yeah. I need to be able to wipe my opponent's spell and chop card side. And I've got this. Because it's Pa, Ma, Pa, Ma. And then using that last Ma, special summon the Calculator, which is one of my cards that I'm going to be using.
And that's where your Thunder Seahorse recruits these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where he plays into it.
Just that.
Sishunder is also part of that combo. Because then you get to target a level 4 light Thunder type monster for 1600 or less in your graveyard. So you can recycle these guys, Mahunder, Pahunder, with Sishunder. And Thunder Seahorse searches them out. I can't believe I missed Pahunder. Sorry, duelists.
That's fine. That's where I came in. Was like, huh?
It actually is a pretty effective combo, and I've seen it shut me down in 1 to 2 turns if the deck's played right. But that's all plays into the skill of the duelist and whether they see the combo in their hand and they understand the abilities that they can play out from their hand.
Yeah, and plus considering
that is your recruiter of that deck.
Yeah, and considering the fact that I'm that kind of guy who's an a-hole, I'm going to be trying to find a way to get Battery Man D out to be able to slap down him, to slap him in defense position, along with my other card that I have, if I can, because I know you can have like 7 cards on the field, but being able to XYZ and crap.
Well, the other thing that goes well with these guys, since they're all under 1500, is they're not limited by not being able to use Inferno Reckless Summon either.
Yeah.
So it's another Thunder type IRS deck.
Yeah, and the only other thing that would really cripple it would be Torrential Tribute.
At 2, yes, that
works. That'll cripple it, but being able to drop, like Battery Man D in defense position, and then if you want to, because you can be that guy and throw down Hamon, Lord of Striking Thunder, which is another one of my cards I like to use.
But how often, guys, do you guys see Torrential played at 2 at your locals? What about you, Eddie? How often do you see it at 2?
considering I play on Dueling Network a lot, I don't get to go to locals. I don't see it played very often. I see more Starlight Road anymore.
What about you, Genzo?
How much do I see what card?
Torrential.
Torrential? I see it all the time.
I never see it at mine, so maybe it's a Midwestern thing. Maybe we got it good. I see more people abusing Mirror Force at 2 than Torrential, which in my opinion is really a mistake, and a mistake I make myself. Because Torrential is very powerful, and it reacts to summons rather than attacks. But for my area, these guys would play well into it because I don't see a whole lot of Torrential lovers in my area.
Yeah.
Okay.
But being able to also, because with Hamon, you're having to sacrifice the 3 continuous spell cards. If you want to be that guy as well and run 3, I know people are probably going to smack me for this one, 3 Solidarities, this also plays into your deck. Because it starts out as a, it would still be targeted by bottomless trap hole once it hits the field. Right? Just want to make
Wait
sure.
a second. Did you say you were going to summon Pawhunder, Mahunder, Pawhunder, Mahunder, the Calculator, and Hamon?
No. Being able to do all that and then maybe drop a, because you've already got Thunder Seahorse in the grave.
Yeah.
Drop down a Solidarity to raise the roof on the dang place.
Oh, I see.
And just start, drop 3 Solidarities and just, watch your opponent weep. But I know you can't do that in one turn because, it requires... The combo itself requires at least 7 cards for that kind of a thing. Minus the Solidarity...
That's a lot. And you got to protect from the back row.
That's why you need 6 cards at least. You need at least 6 cards.
I think the only thing that hurts that is Samurais, and we see a lot of those, even at local levels.
Yeah. But anyway, go ahead, Genzo, I know you have a couple cards. I gotta go take care of something right quickly.
Okay, my 3 fave cards that I'm going to talk about would be... My first one is just like a talking point, which is Tribe Shocking Virus. He's a level 4 Water Thunder. He's got 1700 attack, 1000 defense. Once per turn, you can banish 1 monster from your hand, destroy all face-up monsters on the field with the same type as that monster. That just seems really good. Unfortunately, that's just not been the case. But just because he's like the brother or sister of Tribe Infecting Virus, I figured I would mention it because not only that, he's a Thunder, and I kind of like the idea. Like if, I don't know, like you have archetype dominant like local areas, like this guy might not even be a bad side deck. But in all honesty, it's kind of a bad card. But on to my number 2, which is a Synchro monster, Mist Valley Thunderlord, level 7 Wind, 2600 attack, 2400 defense, so it's pretty good stats for a level 7. Takes 1 tuner and then 1 or more non-tuner Mist Valley monsters. So it's just like level 3 tuner and a Mist Valley Falcon kind of thing, which I say that because it's probably the most common way you would see this guy hit the field. Once per turn, you can select and return 1 card you control to the hand, and this card gains 500 attack until the end phase. This effect can be activated during either player's turn. And which, I guess what I should say, what I really like about this guy is not only can he use Safe Zone, Fiendish Chain, Call the Haunted, just cards that sit on the field, but also the fact that his effect can be used in the damage step is really, really good. So I like that about him. And then my final card, which is my favorite card of all time, is Guardian Trice. Cannot be summoned unless you control a face-up Twin Swords of Flashing Light Trice When this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, special summon the monster from the graveyard that was used for its tribute summon. Now, he's a level 5 light with 1900 attack and 1700 defense. And you're like, okay, maybe I can understand why you like the guy because of his artwork, whatever. But you definitely don't like this guy because he was excellent to play. Now, while he was probably not ever excellent to play, I have played him, and he has been in a deck that top 8 at a regional, a consecutive, a Saturday and Sunday, back in the day of Soul Control. It was my little tech, and that's pretty much where he wound up becoming my favorite card because it was just random. It was one of those kind of weekends where I didn't need my Nats invite because I already had it, so it was just like, you know, I really like the Soul Control deck, so I'm going to play it, but what can I do to kind of mix it up? And this was the guy. So, like, I would Soul Exchange Sacred Phoenix of Nephthys and then set him because you're like, you can't summon him without the equip spell. You're right, you can't, but you can set him. And so they would be like, what is that? Attack over it, whatever the case may be. And then I would special summon their Nephthys back to my field. And so it was just pretty cool. And that's my 3 guys.
Personally, I like to see the cards that nobody really thinks about. That's one of the things that excites me when I go to locals. The thing that discourages me is going to locals and everybody's running the same thing. When I go, like this kid just completely blew me away. You know, I'm running, last one I went to, I was running my Meta Wings, which was the Jinzo heavy side. But he completely blew me away with this Gusto deck that I never saw coming. And it played amazingly, and it's not something that's mainstream or considered tier 1.
Wait, are you talking about the wins?
Yeah, Gustos are pretty dang amazing when they run right.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
exactly it. And this kid he pulled him out. And he took the guy who does the damage back at you. Bang, bang, bang at my beat sticks and just beat the heck out of me with it.
Yeah, kind of reminds me of a Relinquished.
So what's your Zeddy?
Well, I've already mentioned 2 of mine, as you've already heard, Hamon and the Calculator. I'll go over the Calculator's effect just real quickly. This card's attack is equal to the combined levels of all monsters you control by times 300. He's level 2, light, so, you know, he can be quite the beater when you've got a lot of monsters out on your side of the field. And being able to is all I can say. I'm going to take 2 cards and throw them into one because there's only one little thing that separates both of these cards, and that there's a dark in their name. The Creator and the Dark Creator. I enjoy these cards because now that I got to thinking about it, these cards belong in a Dark World deck. A Chaos Dark World deck.
I'm going to say, actually, there's since you're talking about the Creator before you go farther into yours, I've found one use for him that I really liked out of him, and that was the ability, the only way I've ever been able to run Gate Guardian. It's the only way I could ever get all 3 pieces to the field was to be running that guy.
Yeah.
Running the Creator because of his ability to bring back monsters.
Yeah, and once per turn, you can discard 1 monster in your graveyard. Or you can target 1 monster in your graveyard. Send 1 card from your hands to the graveyard, and if you do, special summon that target that you targeted. So, let's see. I'm gonna ditch Silva for something or rather. Boop, comes to my side of the field. Oh look, Silva comes too. If I've got 5 of those bad boys in my graveyard, 5 or more of those bad boys in my graveyard, I'm dropping the Dark Creator.
One problem.
Hmm.
Just one.
One.
You cannot special summon the Dark World monsters when they're discarded as a cost.
Yep, that's why this card I'm thinking of, darn, I can't remember. That's why that's the way they errated like people wanting to use it for lightning vortex and stuff. You couldn't use it for costs.
So you
So like
find-
Dark Creator would be fine with your idea because they're all dark, just not the Creator.
So maybe we throw in, you know, since if we're gonna like maybe do a chaos build, like I was mentioning before, we put Jinzo in. We throw, you know, we make it to where we can pull Jinzo to our side of the field, and then we start hammering out with the Dark Creator, and just walking through. Nah, 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 you can't stop me. And just wiping your opponent. Another one of the cards I recommend throwing in, Elemental Hero Voltic. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can target one of your banished Elemental Hero monsters, special summon that target. Not just because, you know, because running this card, Elemental Hero monster, easily being able to use Super Polymerization for almost any of your elemental fusions for it. You're able to throw down, you would pull out some of those monsters that you may have Fusion Gate or use Miracle Fusion with.
That's about his best utility.
Yeah.
Is Miracle Fusion heavy hero decks, and with the Gyarados shining less now absolute zero, but with those three cards, using Miracle Fusion quite a bit in those decks.
Yeah. And then my last... Oh, go ahead.
Isn't there an OTK with Voltic?
Let me look.
I believe it's centered around Voltic and Neos Alias and having Gemini Sparks in there. But you can do things with the deck. Like,
Yeah, imagine it's built like a kind of semi-standard hero build at least. But for the life of me, like I can't bring the OTK to my head. I just have like a file cabinet drawer full of deck list names, and I can only see Voltic OTK. Like I can't actually read the folder.
Well, that sucks.
I know.
But Voltic, you know, heroes within themselves, when they were first released, everybody just kind of brushed them aside, and everybody gets so mad when they release new ones. But with the later ones and the support that they've released, they have been easier to run. And like Miracle Fusion is great for getting rid of cards, and using Levier's effect again, like you were mentioning, using Voltic's effect. But not just that, but with Super Poly, like getting rid of the Zen mains. It's great.
Yep.
You're not destroying it, you're removing it from the field. Any other guys you got to go over? If not, we're going to get to the Busty Babe. Our last point of interest, Thunder Yan Yan. She's a light type monster, 1900 attack, 4 stars. If there's a non-light monster on your side of the field, you have to destroy her. But she was one of the original Thunder beat sticks. Really with a lot of decks either being light or dark, heavy or a mixture of both. She's a good option to look at. I wouldn't per se that she's going to fit into any great decks as a mainstay, but she definitely has some good artwork. She has a good attack, and if you're running something that's pure light, like the Hunter cards or Batteryman or something along those lines, she's a great card to look at as an option just for her stats, for her attribute, and if you just want to look at the Busty Babe on the card. What about you?
Rocking a drum kit.
Every time, just every time you said she's a great option to look at, the only thing my mind was just going gutter, 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 boobs, gutter, boobs, gutter, gutter, yeah.
I think Genzaki's coming up with a name for this podcast as Eddie talks about gutter, gutter, gutter.
Gutter everything.
What about you, Genzo?
The only thing I really have to say about Thunder, I always called their Thunder Neon, but I guess it's Nyan, is that in a game that Konami is making more attribute-based, more archetype-based, I don't understand why this isn't a good card. Like, I do, but I'm just like, why not? Like, I'm getting ready to talk about Watts. Every monster I run in my Watt deck is
Light.
Is the light monster. You know, unless, of course, you run a card D, you know, but it's never just going to sit on the field, right? You know, in the perfect scenario, it doesn't get effect veilered, it goes to the graveyard. And even if it does get...
Yep.
Yeah. But I guess the point that, you know, I go back to a whole lot throughout these discussions is there a better option? And so, like, I guess the one point that can make me stop questioning why has nobody even done the, hey, look, I checked this card because it's funny, is Thunder King Ryo. He's 1900 attack, he's light, and his effect actually does something to benefit your game.
And it's only as your choice. It's not an automatic if you get something on your field. Because, I mean, an easy creature swap or enemy controller is going to get rid of your beat stick.
Yeah.
With Thunder Nyan.
Okay, I had to do this because the other thing that came to mind as soon as the whole Thunder Nyan thing was, and she's a cat!
The Nyan cat.
It had to fit. It fits. Oh gosh, people are gonna be so tuned out to this.
And our next point after going over our guys was decks. So I'll let you guys go through yours. I'll kind of finish out decks. So Eddie, why don't you tell us about Batterymen?
Okay, I'm gonna start out with the Batterymen OTK. So you start off by allowing your opponent to get a monster face up on the field. Then use a card that allows you to special summon Batteryman AA. Followed by Inferno Reckless Summon to bring out all 3 Batteryman A's to the field from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Due to Battery AA's effect, if all copies you control are in the same position, they each gain 1,000 attack points for that battle position for each copy you control. This means if all 3 are in attack position, that means they have 3,000, but beware, if one of these 3 in face-up defense position, they'll each have 0 attack. Due to the effect of Inferno Reckless Summon, your opponent will get to select a face-up monster they control and special summon as many copies of it from their hand, deck, or graveyard as well. Therefore, it may be necessary to wait until you have cards in your hand that will get rid of everything on your opponent's field before you trying to bring out your Batteryman AA's. Short Circuit is your best bet, so you can use it to destroy everything your opponent controls once you have 3 or more Batteryman monsters on the field. Other options would after the field has been cleared, your 3 Batteryman AA's can then attack directly for 9,000 life points. Congratulations, you just OTK'd. And there are just several different ways you can go about doing this.
There's your way to use Electric Snake and Batterymen with Lightning Vortex. And then you still get a draw engine out of it.
How's that?
So you use your Electric Snake to discard for Lightning Vortex, and you still get a draw engine running Batteryman OTK.
No. Electric Snake has to be discarded by your opponent's effect.
Oh! Darn it.
Yeah.
Okay. Brain fart.
So, woo!
That it for Batteryman for you, Eddie?
For me, yeah, I watched my friend play it. He would know more about it than I would, but I pretty much explained the OTK of it, which is what most people run it for. Other than that, not really much to talk about.
Well, I like to say that Microcell, Batteryman Microcell, isn't he the flip guy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's pretty good. I like him, and I also like Batteryman Charger. I don't really care for the other tribute Batterymen, but I like those two cards. Just because Batteryman Microcell's a tutor, or no, he's just a draw card. No, he's a recruiter. Yeah, I'm looking at him now. Finally, sorry, I'll get my stuff straight. Special summon 1 level 4 lower Batteryman. So that's pretty good. And then when he's destroyed by battle, you draw a card.
He's you mentioned Charger, but you forgot to mention one other guy who goes into the Batteryman decks. If you're looking at pure Batteryman Industrial Strength to be able to abuse the graveyard after your Batterymen have gotten dumped into it.
Yeah, but he's a 2 tribute. And when I've played Batteryman, I've played, huh?
I think he's removal. Let me double check, but I could.
Oh yeah, he is.
Yeah, that's why I ran him, because he was removal, so I could use what was in my graveyard. So if I wasn't running Chaos, I still had a way to use my graveyard removal to get something powerful out.
Well, good on me for paying attention. That's what you get for not reading the entire text of a card.
So, you were going to talk to us about Watts. Let's discuss Watts.
What?
What?
No, okay, it didn't work anyway. Yeah, I really like Watts. So, the first card to talk about is Watt Cobra. As soon as he got released, it really gave the deck a point of focus and a real leg to stand on, really. I mean, it just gave the deck that last little bit it needed to make players go, okay, this seems like it'll be worth investing time and effort in. He can attack you direct or attack your opponent directly, and when he inflicts battle damage by a direct attack, you can add 1 Watt monster from your deck to your hand. So, just from my experiences playing this game, I've never seen so many Effect Veilers fall from my opponent's hand, and I was just like, lol, okay. Because it doesn't matter. Like, they have to Effect Veiler you in main phase, so if they do, you just don't battle. And with your protection from things like Messenger of Peace, your buku amount of traps, you just like, alright, them actually destroying your Watt is so unlikely in most cases, especially in the open game. So this deck doesn't care about Effect Veiler whatsoever. And then I want to talk about Watt Dragonfly, because it's the recruiter of the deck. So we already have a tutor, now we have a recruiter. When it's destroyed by your opponent's card, either by battle or card effect, which is really important for cards now. Because the reason why battle recruiters have seen less and less and less and less play from an era when they were really good and really vital is because so many decks have so many cheap ways to destroy your cards and get around that when destroyed by battle effect. So I like him for that, and he's pretty key to like one of the best things the deck can offer, which we'll get to in a second. Then we have Watt Giraffe, who's like the largest attacker I think they have from their basic setup of monsters, not including the synchros. He's got 1200 attack. He can attack direct. When he does, your opponent cannot activate the effects of spells, traps, or monsters until the end phase. So what's kind of a neat play is sometimes you can, if you just have him on the field, say, I'd like to enter my battle phase. Your opponent sees no threat, and so he's like, okay. So you attack, and say they have a face-down monster and 2 face-down spells or traps. They feel okay. So you hit them for the 1200. Now they can't activate any of those effects. So let's just say best-case scenario mode. They have a solemn warning down, and they have, let's see, a bottomless trap hole, and their face-down is Sangan, right? So now you can Black Rose Dragon, main phase 2, summon your Watt Burks or Watt Barracks, whatever his name is the level 3 tuner. Synchro Black Rose Dragon, they get no Sangan, they can't activate Solemn Warning or Bottomless Trap Hole. So that's pretty cool. Then the last one I'm really going to spend time with is Watt Hopper, because if you know Watts, even if you don't know Watts and you've played against Watts, you know the Hopper lock. Basically, you have 2 of these guys on the field face up. Your opponent cannot select another. Outside of Mirror Force, which is rarely going to put you in a bad position. As a Watt player, you really don't care about Mirror Force. But so Torrential and Dark Cold. Outside of that, most decks really can't affect the lock on a consistent, efficient, dependable kind of level. So he's really nasty. So you want to play 1-for-1, so you can accelerate getting Hopper on the field. That's where Dragonfly becomes really good. The decks even run Shining Angel just to get a Hopper lock on the field as soon as possible. Because then you just start summoning Watt Cobra, attack direct, tutor. Next turn, summon another Watt, attack direct with both. The damage just equals up so fast. And for burn and stall players, you should really be considering Watt Hopper, because it just fits the mold for everything you're going to want to do. Other key cards for the deck, Dark Bribe, of course. You want to protect all those spells and traps, and also you want to protect against the Dark Hole, which is an out to your Hopper lock. You want to protect against Torrential Tribute, which is an out to your Hopper lock. I think a real cool discussion that's been going on since the release of the Huge Revolution is over is what's better, Starlight Road or the Huge Revolution is over. For, I don't know, the average deck, the average meta deck, I think Starlight Road is that default go-to, because they're like, hey, I get a 2500 body with Stardust Dragon, and I have that follow-up. Sure, I can't special summon the Stardust back, but I don't really care about that at this point, because my Starlight Road takes care of one of your mass removal effects, and then Stardust Dragon after the fact is going to stop, an MST on a clutch card like a face-down Solemn or something. So, but what I've always liked about the Huge Revolution over, especially for this deck, is it's great against Scrap Dragon. And while Scrap Dragon isn't as relevant as it has been in the past, it's still a card that decks like Chaos Dragon make, and others, but they have to destroy their card and your card. The Huge Revolution just says whenever 2 or more cards on the field would be destroyed, versus Starlight Road where 2 or more of your own cards. So that's a cool little inner discussion inside the White deck. But also, Messenger of Peace is kind of a clutch card. Honest, of course, because they're all light. Creature Swap, there's nothing better than giving these terrible little individual monsters to your opponent and letting them be their weakness. Especially if, say, it's kind of like a mid-game scenario where you have a Watt and it's not a bad position per se for yourself. You can activate Creature Swap and maybe even bait out a Solemn Judgment, and then you're just like, I don't care. it's fine. Um, Recycling batteries. Goes in match from the side deck is a great card, obviously. Shard of Greed, because you run so much like Starlight Road or the Huge Revolution is Over or Dark Brob. So you can kind of protect Shard of Greed, which are just like Pot of Greeds 2 turns later. Threatening Roar. So there's a lot of support. And what I do like about the deck is the kind of deck recipes that are the recipes for the best versions of this deck. They're real reminiscent to the deck recipes for very successful control decks of the past, with low monster counts and then high spells or traps. You know, so I like the deck. I like the fact that it has built-in tutors, recruiters, stun, a lock, all in one deck. So I like it.
Well, which brings me to my deck. It's not. I know I kind of went over the Hunders, but it's not a completely Thunder deck. But one of the staple cards in the deck, Morphtronics. They are probably more of a power deck of the past with the way the game is accelerated. But most of it relies on Kelvon and Slinging and other and Radeon cards like that. But the two cards that really come into effect, other than like your synchros like Power Tool Dragon, and being able to run a equip spell heavy deck, are going to be Morphtronic Magnon, which when he's in attack, they can only select the highest attack monster as an attack target. When he's in defense, your opponent cannot select another monster as an attack target. Not so much play, but it is an optional card to look at to put into the deck. Probably the more relevant one to Morphtronics within the Thunder type is going to be Radeon. While he's in attack, all your Morphtronic monsters gain 800 attack. While he's in defense, they all gain 1,000 defense. So, the basis of the Morphtronics is to have low-level monsters out, create locks with cards like Morphtronic Bind, so on and so forth. I think the big problem that's come from Morphtronics is you've got cards like Zenmaines, you've got 3MST, you've got Heavy Storm, you've got so much removal that they've kind of taken a back burner. But about probably 4 to 5 formats back, they were a really relevant deck, being low-level monsters, being able to create a lot, go into your power tool, and just storm your opponent's field and keep them in lock to where they couldn't attack you with the bind. But there's so much protection that has to go into the backfield with this deck that right now I wouldn't say it's a highly competitive deck, especially with 6 Samurais running rampant, as they have like ultimate field control and easily gained in 1 to 2 turns in almost every game if the deck is built right. But definitely I don't want to forget about Morphtronics. There's only a couple of cards within that type. There is Magnon Bar, but it's kind of throw it to the side. Probably within the Thunder archetype, Magnon possibly, but more than likely Radeon are going to be your Thunder guys to go to for a Morphtronic deck. Good supporter, but I didn't want to completely forget about Morphtronics. As if built right, I think it could still slightly be competitive, but that all depends on if you see a lot of Samurai players at your locals. If so, I wouldn't even really look at running the deck, because almost anything you run, much like running an Exodia deck at a Samurai heavy local, it's going to make it useless because you're depending on your spell and trap zone to make that deck effective. The monsters are great at making it effective, but your equipped spells and your luck cards like Morphtronic Bind are the glue that holds that deck together. So, with that said, kind of wrap things up, just for you people who are still interested, we are still having the Win-A-Mat for Child's Play. Goes till the 25th. You can still make donations, get your chance to win either a Shark Drake Vice or a Chaos 39 Utopia race signed by Little Karibo. It's $1 per entry. It's a chance to win a mat, you know. If you just want to toss $1 in, hey, you never know. That dollar could be the one that wins it for you. And next week is going to be our last type. We've saved it because it has made a huge impact on the game. It's been more severely limited with when glow up bulb hit, but next week we're going to be looking at plants. So definitely, if you're a plant fan, tune in next week. There's plenty of great cards to go over within it.
You also still have Aqua left, right?
Have what?
Aqua?
We do still have Aqua left. My bad. So the week after, we're going to do Aqua, and then we're going to look at some other things to go into. So if you're a regular listener, toss out your ideas in our Competitive Edge section as to things you'd like to see us go over. We're going to be looking at some new ways to approach this, some new things to talk about, but we also like to get feedback. So definitely post what you'd like to hear about. And we all want to wish you, unfortunately, you won't hear this till Wednesday, so it'll be past, but we record on Sunday. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to all of our listeners. From Midnight Fox and the rest of the Midnight TCG staff, say Merry Christmas, guys!
Merry Christmas! Happy Holidays!
And I think that's about it. This is Midnight Fox, Ginzo, Eddie Phoenix, and Genzaki signing off for the Midnight TCG Competitive Edge podcast.